And Mural.
Good afternoon. This is a public meeting of the Indiana Arts Commission Advisory Review Panel, convened to review applications submitted for the Regional Initiative Grants for fiscal year 2020. My name is Maya Michelson, and I'm Deputy Director of the Indiana Arts Commission. Today is April 29th, 2019, and we are in the Indiana Humanities Building in Indianapolis. We welcome our applicants who may be part of our audience today, and would like to remind them that there is to be no direct contact or conversation about the evaluation and disposition of applications before, during, or after the panel meeting. And please be sure all cell phones are silenced during the meeting today, and that's actually to our panelists too. So if you haven't silenced your cell phone, please take a second and do that. At this time, we would like the panelists and staff to introduce themselves, stating their name, occupation, and where they are in the state. Where they're from, thank you. Judy, I'm going to ask you to go first, if you would.
Judy Byron from Indianapolis. Is that all you need?
And what organization you're affiliated
Arts
with?
for
Sorry.
Lawrence.
Great, thanks.
Ashley Souders. I am with Eskenazi Health Foundation, and I was born in Tinton, Indiana, but I reside here in Indianapolis.
Ray Hedden, Bloomington. I'm a board member of the Bloomington Playwrights Project and the Jewish Theater of Bloomington.
Deanna Polsma, IAC staff.
Stephanie Haynes, IUC staff, Indianapolis.
Maya Michelson, IEC staff, Bloomington.
Michael Dane, I'm an associate professor of theater education and directing at Ball State University and live in Muncie.
I'm Matthew Rao. I'm from Evansville, and I run the Wrights Home Museum.
Great, thank you. Thanks, everyone. So now we'll begin the panel review, and this is how the process will work. I will announce the application we will review and ask the first reader to begin the discussion. The first reader will provide their assessment of the application based on the evaluation criteria and their perspective. Panelists, please know that the application does not need to be recapped in its entirety since everyone has read it. Just provide your comments. After the first reader is finished, I will ask the second reader to present any new, additional, or opposing comments. We're not looking for consensus, just a full evaluation from the different perspectives panelists bring to the table. After the second reader has finished, I will open the discussion to the full panel to offer their perspectives. Remember, in the interest of time, we're only looking for new, additional, or opposing viewpoints. If a panelist has a conflict of interest, we will pause, ask that panelist to step out during the application evaluation. And finally, once each application has been reviewed by the full panel, we will ask the panelists to update their scores in the online system. It is common for scores to change as a result of this broader discussion amongst the panelists. These scores save automatically. Are there any questions from the panelists? All right, then let's begin. Now we will review application from the Indianapolis Parks Foundation for the Indy Parks Summer Concert Series. Matthew, you are the first reader.
This application is very strong. It is an event that has been held for many years in a row. They very clearly demonstrate the answers to each of the questions that are posed to them and that we're supposed to score them on. I only took a point off because I didn't feel like they addressed very much being ADA accessible. That was the only criticism I have of this application. It was, again, it was very, very strong.
Judy, your second reader?
I thought it was strong as well. Great mixture of music genres, lots of support. I also was impressed that, as strong as it is, they were still trying to increase capacity by adding staff members. Oops. Okay, I had another comment to make. Bear with me.
That's all right.
Find my comments. And that they took community feedback and changed their genre of music at Broadfield Park. Great to see that they're listening to their community. That's all I had to add.
Great, thank you. Now I'll open it up to the full panel for any additional comments on this application. Anyone have anything additional? they'd
Well,
like
an
to add?
issue that comes up for me in many of these is a question of diversity and how we define that. It seemed to me that the diversity that was encouraged here was of music, style, but I didn't see much evidence for trying to recruit a diverse audience. And I didn't know whether that should be important to us or not.
I do think that they talked about serving, that they conduct the programs in parks throughout Indianapolis, that many of them were in parks in underserved neighborhoods, poorer neighborhoods perhaps where people would not have access to a live musical performance. I do think they addressed that.
Okay.
I would agree.
I agree too, and I think that the areas in Indianapolis where these parks are in all corners of Indianapolis.
The program is free and open to the public, and so should not provide any kind of socioeconomic barriers to most any residents of Indianapolis, I would think.
And I thought it was nice that each park kind of has a different focused theme of different music that they provide.
Other comments? Great discussion, thank you. If you would finalize your scores and comments in the online system, it saves automatically. And then if you would lean back away from your laptop so that I will know that you are ready to move on to the next application.
Here. And that will automatically.
Yeah, but I'll go down and be sure.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Right, everyone done? All right, we'll move on to the next application. Indianapolis Shakespeare Company, the Indianapolis Shakespeare Company's main stage series Hamlet. Ashley, you are our first reader on this application.
So I thought the purpose and the history was clear in this application. Their supporting materials they thought were great, high quality. It's an organization that's been taking place for 10 years, so I felt like that area was strong. Community engagement, some comments that I had there. You know, they're moving from the White River to Riverside, and I think they could have really talked about that a little bit more. I'm concerned what's this going to do to White River, and then also the positive and negative impact on Riverside. You know, what made them make this decision to move. I love that they are adding the neighbors and adding Riverside to be a part of this, promoting them as musicians, promoting them as vendors for food and beverage, asking them to be ushers. I thought it's a really good positive, but again, I'm back to why Riverside, and then what's going to be happening at White River. Project management was strong. I think, again, it's an organization that's been taking place for over 10 years, and they seem to be doing well on that end.
Great, thank you. Michael, your second reader.
I agree with everything that Ashley said. I did want to applaud the fact that they're trying to make their company a little more diverse, even though there isn't a lot of detail in the application about other ways that they're going to do this, other than they're going to cast a Hamlet of color. There was at least the philosophical goal to try to make the company more diverse and to more reflect the neighborhood that they're going to be performing in.
All right, I will open it up to the full panel. Other comments that folks would like to make related to this application?
This application demonstrates very well their intention to serve an underserved community. They talk about this being a neighborhood in Indianapolis with very low high school graduation rates and a lot of poverty. I'm thinking a lot of those kids don't get to take dance lessons and have dance recitals, and so it sounds like this is going to really serve a lot of those kids and give them that opportunity to be exposed to dance.
Other comments from any of the other panelists? All right, well, hearing none, I would ask you to finalize your comments and scores in the online system, and then kick back when you're done, and we'll move on to the next application. good? All right, we'll move on to the next application. Indianapolis Traditional Music and Dance Group, Swirl with Indie Contra. And Ray, you are the first reader on this one.
Right. So this is a program to enhance, expand the programs for contra dancers, including bands and participants. I did have a question about diversity here. My sense of looking at the videos and the pictures, everybody here is white. The band members are all white, the participants are white, and my sense is that's the genre that tends to congregate around this particular dance. And so I wasn't sure, I didn't see any effort in there to do anything more about that, and I'm not sure that it can be if that's the kind of community it gathers, but that was a concern of mine at least, I think. Marketing and attendance seem to be two of their major concerns here, which is not necessarily the same thing as developing a program or diversity. I mean, marketing, we have this program and we're going to try to expand it, but we haven't. So I didn't see a whole lot of engagement with the community. The community is already fixed, I think.
Hey. Thank you, Ray. Judy, you're second reader on this one?
I thought for a first-time applicant that this was a well-written application. I did also agree with the video being all-white musicians and all-white dancers. They did explain some of the diversity within the 39 years of contra dancing, but they all seem to be of European descent. I would have liked to have seen how they might reach other audiences. I did like that they offered a sliding scale for admission. I thought that lowered some barriers to folks from lower incomes, and that there is a cost-saving incentive to participate. And I think they have a long-standing track record of success with their program. I think the management of the program is well done.
Great, thank you, Judy. I'll open it up to other panelists who have comments on this application.
I was surprised when I looked at the video and photos that they included that there were more people. It felt small to me. And that they were looking for an opportunity to build their base so that their organization would continue to exist rather than to create an additional meaningful, artistic, impactful experience.
Other comments?
I looked at their social media, and I just think adding membership, social media is so huge and prominent. If they would increase their presence on that, their website is a little outdated to me, and I think just updating that would help.
Okay, good. Other comments?
I also thought in the video it looked like they didn't have a very large room of people.
Mm-hmm.
Not very many participants.
Mm-hmm.
At least in the video that they selected to include here.
Mm-hmm. Great, good discussion. Other comments? Hearing none, if you would finalize your comments and scores for this application and then lean back and let us know that you're done. Okay, we're ready to move on. The next application is Indianapolis Women's Chorus, Lifting as We Climb, Catalyzing Community Conversations Around Voting. And Ashley, you are the reader for this application.
So starting with artistic quality, I thought this first section read really well. It seems like they really thought out and took time ensuring questions were answered. They had great information, and then they inserted the quote from Joan Cinco, I'm pronouncing that, but I thought that was a great piece to that. Community engagement. This piece, I have, sorry, I'm reading here. What additional fundraising will be done to ensure tickets and transportation needs can be addressed? I think they said they're going to try to make sure that the parents and the family will be able to come to this, but they didn't really talk about how they're doing that. So people can say they're gonna do something, but I wanna know how that's going to be funded. Online social media, again, I hid this piece. I really think it should be part of their participation. They're using high school students. High school students are all on social media, Instagram. They should really use that to their advantage. Even adding choir practice photos online to increase the hype. I think that'd be a really good idea. And then, again, I said the high school students would be a great marketing tool for this to use with their online presence. Project management seems to be overall great, and budget was good. So.
Great, thank you. I'm going to open it up for other comments from panelists. Any other thoughts on this application?
This is a very well-written application. The person who wrote it did a very good job, but it also seems like it's a real veteran organization that's been around for a long time, and they really, really have it together. I was impressed with their personnel. The people that they're working with that are managing this project have really impressive credentials.
We had some great partnerships as well.
Good.
I was wondering, maybe I missed this, but since increased voting is one of their goals, is there a way that they've included an assessment? I don't know how you would assess that since they haven't voted yet at the end of the, in other words, is there a way to evaluate how successful they are in getting more people to vote?
It felt like all of their evaluation measurements were more designed of the survey or anecdotal information on whether or not people felt like they would be more likely to vote,
Right.
but there wouldn't be anything in place to
Yeah,
judge
well, we
until
wouldn't know
actual
that
vote
back
took
to vote
place.
yet, but I was just wondering if there's
And then
any,
after the
just,
fact,
this is
like-
a question, is there any way
Yeah.
to refine that process or do a feedback later on, how many people did vote, something like that?
I guess I read it in such a way that the civic engagement portion of this philosophically was equally as important as actually having data later on that more people did, at least that there would be something that would inspire them to hopefully do this. But in terms of data, I didn't think that there was a tool to really be able to gather that.
Good. Any other comments? Great discussion, thank you. If you take a minute or two to adjust your scores. Okay, we will move on to the next application, the Invent Learning Hub, project name Arts and Wellness. Ray, you're the first reader on this one.
Right. This is a charter school that wants a mission to use arts to communicate an idea, a feeling, or a culture. I thought the YouTube video was excellent at conveying the enthusiasm of the participants, the feelings of enthusiasm. So that goal particularly seems very strongly carried out here. I'm not sure about an idea, if that was part of the goal too. I thought the diversity of the audiences was excellent. 70% minorities, 40% in poverty, people at poverty level. I didn't see a balance sheet here. Did I miss that?
Can someone help? Did anyone?
Let's see.
I believe it was missing.
Yeah. How important is that?
It's something that we will definitely need to have in place if they are to be funded.
Okay.
It's fairly important.
sort of organizational capacity related to the completion of the application.
There was a lengthy, I think, a Facebook video having to do with the Endowment learning how to sell to school. Just as a device for promoting themselves, I didn't think that was particularly relevant or engaging. It's the school itself rather than this project, and it wasn't, to me, very interesting. So just as a way of selling themselves, I would suggest they think about that.
Great, thank you, Ray.
Sure.
Matthew, you are the second reader on this one.
I scored this very high. I don't have a lot to add. It was a good application.
Okay.
Let me say that these things I raised, I thought those were very good too. But I mean, there are just some things here that
Sure.
I thought were.
If I remember correctly, just again for clarification, there was an explanation in the budget area?
I don't think there was.
There was not.
There
Okay.
was for another one that there was in the budget, but there wasn't for this one.
Got it.
Okay. Other comments? Yes,
They
Matthew,
did
sorry.
do a very good job addressing the diversity of their participants in their program. I know we were all glad to see that probably.
Other comments on this application?
It's been mentioned, but I'm just going to say it one more time. Anytime that there's not an overall budget of an organization to work from, I have real fiscal questions about their capabilities to manage a significant project, regardless of what all the rest of the words say.
Yeah, thank you. Any other comments?
I could be wrong on this, but I feel like on their website it said that are they a new school? Is that
Yes.
what it is?
Yes.
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 So I think
Summer.
that's why probably there wasn't some financial.
They did make that comment, and I think that's
Okay.
what Stephanie was alluding to as well. That comment was made.
Great. Other comments? Thank you. Very good discussion. All right. Take a second if you would and finalize your scores and comments for this application.
No, that's great. Yeah, thank you. Where are we at now? Ivy Tech.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, our next application is Ivy Tech Community College, Indianapolis, Traditions in Transition, Ivy Tech Music and Cultural Appreciation Series. Judy, you are the reader on this application.
So this is a first-time project from, but the organization has been funded before, very strong, confirmed some excellent partnerships for a 3-event series. Partners all have proven track records of excellence. I also thought that the mixture of dance, music, storytelling offered very rich and diverse sampling of arts. I really enjoyed watching the YouTube videos. Although again, the video showed an all-white participants, I think showing some other samples of some of the other art mediums may have shown some more diverse audiences. If that was also, it was a dance video that they supplied, but if that's also a sampling of the music, it's excellent quality. I thought it was an all-inclusive project for students, but also open to the community at large. The students in the area of Indianapolis is racially diverse. The project takes into consideration incorporating artistic mediums of differing cultural backgrounds. The planning of the project not only includes student input, but invites specific student groups that represent underserved populations to the planning table. It's a great array of artistic partnerships aimed to appeal to a wide audience. Space is ADA compliant. My only concern were the samples, art samples that represented primarily all white as opposed to people of color. There were a few details missing, but as a first-time event, I thought it was well thought out. The timeline is thorough, and the staff managing the project looked strong. And I thought that the attendance numbers were based off of past successful projects. Measurement of success through surveys is good. I would have liked to have seen some kind of incentive for students to participate in those surveys. But otherwise, I thought it was a strong application.
Great, thank you. Now I'll open it up to the other panelists. Any additional comments about this application? Anyone have anything to share?
I thought that Judy summed it up really well.
Good. Okay, excellent. Well, if there are no additional comments, I would ask panelists to finalize your comments and scores for this application. If you would. Okay, our next application is a conflict of interest, so I'm going to ask Judy Byron to step out while we review this application. We'll come back and get you, Judy, I promise. The fireplace is nice and warm over there. All right. Our next application is the Johnson County Community Foundation, 2019 Johnson County Community Foundation Color the County Mural Program. Michael, you are the first reader on this application.
In terms of artistic quality, I thought that the project had both clear community building and artistic beautification goals. I like that it combines both experienced and novice artists, or at least the potential for people who aren't really traditional artists to be able to do a paint-by-number sort of thing. The communities that have been involved, they're clearly engaged. They're in their 4th year now, so that there were examples for us to look at of the murals that have been made. In fact, the project has been successful enough that this group has been asked to do similar things. There's been sort of a ripple effect in which they're also doing similar projects now at Kroger, and they've come up with a model that other people could use for this as well. I appreciated their efforts to promote diversity across generations and across artistic abilities. I wish that when I looked at all the pictures, they didn't look as white as they looked. But at least diversity in terms of age and diversity across people with artistic talents. That means that I could be involved in this project with the limited visual art talent that I have. That was a concern of mine. The other thing that was a little bit of a concern was I thought the community engagement section would have been a little stronger if the assessment section, what tools and methods will be utilized and what will be measured, had been answered with more specifics rather than just, well, we know it works because the program is continuing. The project, it's well managed. It has a sound budget. The leadership is experienced, but those were my only 2 concerns.
Great, thank you. Ray, you are second reader on this.
Yes, the question of community engagement, a lot of enthusiasm in the community, that's clear, I think. And I like the promotional material that shows that. It says that the message, they have a yearly message, it will be determined in March.
The theme?
Yeah, but we don't know what that is, do we? And I would also like to know how it's determined, because this is the same thing with the process of selecting artists. So, who's doing the selecting, on what criteria?
Well, they tell us that, but it's not the answer that we probably want. It's the foundation and whoever the partners are, which I'm assuming, maybe I shouldn't assume this, are the places that have made a bid in order to have these murals done on their businesses.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel like there's a lot of investment from the grassroots and,
Right.
or an additional committee that's set up that's made up of a lot of local citizens in order to
Right.
plan
They've
that.
got
So I
an
understand what
ongoing
you're
thing
saying.
that's successful, but they're not quite telling us how some of these things happen, I think. I'd like to know that. And just, here's a comment that I would make on a lot of the applications. The list of the board members, there's no indication of what the, let's say credentials, if that's the right word. It's just the names. So I'd like to know why they're on the board. And in terms of all the board listings, I think it would be good in the future to say, how often does the board meet? What do they see as a mission? Because we have no sense. Do they meet once a year, once a month? It's just a list of the members and sometimes with their calling card. But in this case, not even that.
And that's more feedback for the application in general, that we
Right.
should include that question.
Right,
Yes,
right.
okay.
Great discussion. Other comments from panelists on this application? Okay, well, hearing none, if you would finalize your comments and scoring, and then once you're done, we will go and fetch.
It's nice to have you back.
I'm sure you missed me.
Okay. Our next application is Logan Street Sanctuary, Inc., publication of 2020 edition of the Polk Street Review and creation of placemaking video and podcast. Matthew, you are the reader for this application.
This organization is seeking to publish an annual literary review in Noblesville. Apparently they've done this since 2011. The publication that they're proposing includes submissions from writers of all sorts, poetry and prose, as well as photography and perhaps song lyrics. So it's very inclusive to a lot of different kind of artists. They also will be producing some events to go with the publication of the book, a book launch. They've now started a podcast that also works with these artists, promotes these artists, and promotes the publication. It was a very strong application. I have no reservations about it whatsoever.
Right. All right. I will open it up to the full panel. Are there any other comments about this application that anyone would like to share?
I would have liked to have seen how this two-team management was actually going to achieve the tasks that they listed as their responsibilities. Thought they could have elaborated on that a bit.
Okay. Other comments?
They included a video that was an hour and 17 minutes long. Just seemed unnecessary to me.
I didn't make it all the way through.
Yeah, no, I didn't make it very far, but it was really about the organization, I think,
Yeah.
rather than about the project. And it didn't seem engaging or necessary as a way to include something in a grant proposal.
And it's clearly on the evaluation forms that the applicants see that the panel isn't required to watch more than
Yes.
5 minutes of any of these, and I did commit significantly more than that before I came to the same conclusion Ray just had.
Right.
All right, any other comments on this application? Hearing none, if you would finalize your scores and comments. We are about halfway through the applications. We can take a break or we can soldier on. What's the will of the group here? Press on, or anybody need a break? I'm looking at the expectant woman next to me.
Oh, I'm
who
good.
Seems to be all right.
We're moving pretty expeditiously.
All right, everybody okay with continuing? Are you all right, Michael? Okay. All right, then hearing that we want to forge on, the next application is River West Theater, Inc., Near West Side Rice and Beans Festival. Ashley, you're the first reader on this one.
Yes, so with the artistic quality, and maybe the panel also can kind of help me with this. So I kind of struggled with fully grasping and understanding, is this going to be a partnership with the Arts Council, or is this something they're trying to do separately? Just because what they marketed as the Rice and Beans Festival, it's not mentioned on the promo material. I was just a little confused with exactly what this whole purpose is. Is this going to continue throughout the years, and how they're going to do that? Community engagement seemed really strong. I know this festival hasn't happened in previous years, but their numbers did seem a little low for the projected participation from the community and neighborhood, especially just as an events person. They just seemed low to me from what they're projecting. And then project management seemed great. Their planning process and the timeline is awesome. Probably one of the best timelines I've seen throughout all of these grants.
Great. Judy, you are the second reader in this application.
Yeah, let's see. I'm sure I have. I really loved how inclusive and the passion behind this project. I just thought the theme of rice and beans being the staple in so many cultures of people of color, and yet the spices making the difference. I thought that was really clever. It really spoke to me. Oh, and the other thing, that the staff is all moving to this area really shows their dedication to the community. And as far as some of the questions about the Arts Council, I think it was just another funder for this project. I don't think that they were a partner in any way. I thought that there were a lot of great talents at the table.
Thank you. Other comments from other panelists on this application?
This is sort of a spin-off of your comment, I think, but one of the quotes here is that we're responding to, quote, community identified need. But I'd like to know how the community identified that need, because engagement, I'm not clear what the community was engaged in this. I like the idea of the festival, but where did they get this idea, from the community? I couldn't open the video.
I could not either. I have blank screen on my notes.
Yeah, so whatever that means.
I had the same question about who identified the needs, who was the community, how did this happen? They all seemed like legitimate needs. I also had a question about the tools and methods that were going to be used to evaluate the success. I just thought they were a little light, just tracking neighborhood attendance, and exactly how do you do that?
I do want to add one more comment. It's just saying the festival is an extension of Arts Council of Indianapolis Flow Fest. I think I would have liked to see more of what the Flow Fest is.
And I did also have a note about their attachments being not very supportive.
Okay, good. Good discussion. Any other comments? All right, hearing none, I'd ask you to finalize your scores and comments for this application. Okay, our next application is Shares Inc., the Indie Art Project. Ray, you are the first reader on this application.
Right, this is aimed at providing some arts experience and education to 25 disabled people, which I think they do a very good job of explaining. The game is not artistic excellence in terms of but it's simply not what they're after. It's participation and the satisfaction of doing this and a sense of ownership for somebody who could create something they didn't think they could create in the first place. And I thought that was admirable and well carried out. I have one question about the curriculum that they're proposing, which seems quite sophisticated to me. And it's kind of art education, learning about different styles and all that. It would seem to me almost like a straightforward art curriculum that isn't necessarily in sync with the kind of clientele they're dealing with. And so I'd be curious to know how much learning about art. It seems to me a very successful application in terms of the experience of making it and getting that satisfaction. Not so much clear about how much they expect or want the participants to learn about art history or art styles, because a lot of that is in the curriculum. The photos are very striking, I thought, of the participants and their artworks, and you get a sense of that satisfaction that they're doing. Once again, for this one, for the board members, I saw no indication of what their expertise or roles were.
Okay, Michael, your second reader on this.
Yeah, I thought that the number of artistic experiences that the participants were going to experience was ambitious, but we're not putting a rubric in place in terms of what has to be accomplished with those individual things that they're doing. So I was more interested in the fact that I would probably agree that the arts knowledge or the cultural knowledge that's going to be gained is maybe modest, but particularly with this population, the development of soft and hard skills, and as you already mentioned, the self-empowerment, I thought those were the strongest parts of the application in terms of what the participants would gain from the experience. I love the fact that they've made this the connection with indie art, and it sounds like you have a teacher that's not only dedicated, but someone who knows how to adjust curriculum to the individual needs. I also thought that it was great that all the participants are going to get to have some say in terms of what it is that they do and how often they do it. So there's at least some flexibility that's built into the program as well.
Thank you. Any other comments from other panelists on this application?
Well, I don't know if I missed something, but I have a note here that I would have liked to have seen some artistic documentation of the indie arts art teacher, Rachel Holmes. I didn't see.
There was a little bio, but there wasn't very much.
Okay, I would have liked to have seen a little
That
more
would
of
have been
that.
helpful.
There's one other thing. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, the only thing I was going to say was, this is as far as community impact and engagement, I understand that they've targeted this underserved audience, but I also would have liked to have seen, a connection to the general public, like maybe an exhibition of the student work or something that engaged more than just the small audience.
Right.
One other thing I forgot to say is that it says that the projects are, quote, achievable by all groups. That is, they set up something. So one question is, how did they choose these 25? And do they choose them because they would fit inside these achievable? In other words, who gets excluded? Who's not chosen and why?
I thought the 25 were all part of already a pre-selected group.
Yeah, but I guess why? How?
I'm not sure exactly, and maybe somebody else can help me with this, but I did think that it was part of a specific class or a specific group that had gone and done this at least once before, but there was something at least that gave me the sense that it wasn't that somebody was being excluded, it was just that this was something that these 25 people were in some sort of grouping already, and I don't remember exactly what that is. I may be wrong, but I thought there was something.
How I read it as well.
Okay.
Sorry, I do
No,
have more.
go, please.
The total project cash, I'm not sure if I looked at it wrong, but it was below the 1.5 needed for the IAC grant.
Mhm.
So I don't know if I read that wrong, but I have that noted here.
I don't think you did. I think you read it right. I think this is the one that I was actually talking about, Stephanie, when we talked on the phone, but I couldn't remember which of the ones it was.
Other comments on this application? If not, please finalize your comments and scores.
thought you were pulling our leg when you said that we would be adjusting scores after each of these tests.
Okay, our next.
I'm still adjusting.
Oh, great, excellent, sorry.
Thank you for your patience. It's the whole thing of figuring out how to do this without a
In
mouse.
on a new computer, yeah. It's extra long. We have time.
Yes,
We're
we
going
have,
quickly.
we have all the time.
Yeah, this is hard because it scrolls backwards from
I
my
know.
computer, so I can't.
Well, these
scroll
are the
in wrong
finest and
directions.
state-issued laptops, I'll just tell you. Thank you for bearing with us.
Until the Internet Explorer.
Yes, the version of Internet Explorer you're running, and the paperclip in the Microsoft Word application.
Okay, thank you.
We good? All right, then we will move on to our next application, which is Shelby Arts Alliance, celebrate #Shelby Arts. Matthew, you are the reader for this application.
Shelby Arts Alliance are planning some sort of assessment of the state of the arts in Shelby County. It appears that they have worked closely with a local government and maybe their local arts council to try to conduct this assessment about the sort of the state of the arts there, how many artists that they have to work with, and to try to make artists feel more valued and appreciated there. Apparently they have completed some public art projects and have had a lot of opposition to those, and people that think they should fix their potholes instead of their public sculptures. And so the event that they're proposing, I think that they will be announcing and publicizing the results of the assessment that they've conducted, and that it's an effort to include artists, but also community development and placemaking are big elements here. I scored this application very high. I think it's very well done. It's very strong. I do think that they articulately demonstrate each of the things that they're asked to in each of the questions.
Thank you. Any other comments from other panelists on this application? All right, hearing none, I would ask you to finalize your scores for this application. Everybody still doing okay break-wise? Scanning the table. Everyone's still upright? We're good? Okay, we will move on to our next application, which is the St. Vincent Hospital Foundation, Healing Arts, Innovative Music Therapies for Young Patients and Their Families. Ashley, you're the first reader on this application.
Yes, in the artistic quality section of the purpose and the history, I just felt the description was a little minimum. I really think they could increase their data on health studies and music. So their promotional materials, they had some data on that. It would have just been nice if they included that within the description for us to read in the grant. And then I just asked the question of if they could provide more details on how the musician and recording artist was selected out of Fort Wayne, and why not hire someone locally from Indianapolis. I didn't judge off of that. I'm just, I would like to know more information about that. Community engagement. I feel like they're missing out on not providing a survey to the persons receiving the CD to get the feedback and the impact it is making personally on these families. I also would like to know the 90% babies, how those are identified and as the beneficiaries, and what makes them be eligible, and what about the other 10%. It just would have been nice to know a little bit more information about where those totals are coming from. Project management, it seemed to be appropriate size for how many people they have working on it, because this is already a music therapy program in place, and they're just adding to it, and the budget seems to be fine.
Great, thank you. Michael, you're the second reader on this application?
Yeah, I have to admit that as I was reading through this, I just kept crying, just because of the nature of this particular project. I didn't just keep crying, but I mean several times I messed it up. I agreed with the things that Ashley said. I did think that there was I think that the biggest comment that you made that might be a concern might be an assumption from the organization that shouldn't be an assumption, that we already know the value of all of the things that healing arts does. And for me reading this, because that is something that I have something to do with, that, so not with this organization, I knew that data, but for somebody else that would have been really useful. Having said that, they did seek a tremendous amount of input from families in both of the two projects that they're involved in, so it did feel like there was at least some grassroots interaction that was happening. I don't live in Indianapolis, so I wasn't quite as concerned that they went out of town to hire the music person. I actually thought this was a really, really well-prepared grant, and in terms of the community impact, it will only impact those families and those children that are involved in this, perhaps, but that was a huge number. I mean, the number of people that were going to be part of this project was a really significant numbers. So I'm not disagreeing with anything that you said, I'm just adding a little bit of extra flavor to it as well.
Great. Other comments from other panelists on this application?
Just to follow up for what Ashley said in terms of no evaluation from the parents, it's not just that they don't do it, they overtly state they're not going to do it. And there are no formal plans to gather family feedback. So it means they made a conscious decision not to do that, and I'm puzzled by that. I don't know why they wouldn't want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I made a note here that, that engagement with the families, I mean, this is a really emotionally difficult time for them with a baby in NICU, and the fact that they're including the heartbeats of these babies in the music, I thought was just a lovely way to engage with the families without being intrusive. I thought that was commendable.
Any other comments from panelists? All right, hearing none, if you would finalize your comments and scores for this application. Okay, our next application is Sycamore Rehabilitation Services Art Experience Days. Judy, you are the first reader on this application.
I thought that the partners selected for this project, master's students in art therapy and art mix, were excellent. However, I would have liked it if the applicant had included some documentation or website links to the partnering artists. That would have been helpful for me. I really like that these participants have choices, not only in the mediums, but with the partnering art therapists. It's a monthly program, so they can find something different each month, or they can repeat the same type of class. And the promotional material was very good. They're serving a very targeted audience of developmentally disabled, which is an underserved section of our community, which is commendable. They also understand and articulate well the benefits of this program to their participants. I like that they're also looking at opening it up for their staff members. I wonder if they could look at ways to extend beyond their staff and their targeted audience to include the general public, having an art exhibition developing a documentary video, something that might help educate the general public about the need to include these disabled adults. But I find it to be a very strong application. I think this is a really great quality of life experience being offered to this group. And so, yeah, I think it's strong. I just would like to see how they might connect this targeted audience to the general population.
Thank you. Ashley, you're the second reader on this application?
So I'm gonna address that question. So I read about how they're planning to do like an art gallery for this in the future. I don't think it's like set in stone, but they said that that's what they're wanting to do and wanting to get there, which I think is great. That they add that piece in, because we know, you know, what they don't have just one little project, they have an end goal of getting something, you know, more for this project, which I like. But otherwise, I agree with Judy.
I'm going to open it up to the full panel for any additional comments on this application. Anyone have anything to offer?
Well, this is not a okay. This is a whole organization dedicated to rehab services for the disabled and stuff. They say that we do everything to accommodate people with disabilities, and I certainly take that on faith because that's what the whole organization does. But in terms of a grant application, I would like to have seen some specifics. How do you actually accommodate people? Because that's what we ask for in other applications.
I do want to add in that the planning timeline could have added more detail. Having the start date of October 2019, they said was great, but what are you doing in between that time? It just would have been nice to see that.
Any other comments from panelists? All right, hearing none, please finalize your scores and comments for this application.
Anyone need a break?
You all right? Got two more? Okay, we're gonna soldier on then. Okay, our next application is Convergence Inc., A Rising Tide, and Michael, you are the reviewer for this application.
Calling it the elephant in the room may be too strong, but obviously this grant is intended for some of the same purposes as the Rice and Beans Festival, for the same neighborhood, with many of the same partners, using many of the same performers. And like I said, both have the same goals. The difference is that this is 4 performances, and the Rice and Beans Festival is just 1. I actually thought that the grant itself, in many ways, was very well written. I thought it had a really strong timeline that was really clear to follow. I'm not necessarily saying anything negative, other than it felt like I was reading certain parts of the same grant. I love the fact that it's going to be philanthropic. At first, when I read about the tech class, I thought that was a little strange. But now that I realize that what they're doing is they're training people in the neighborhood to be the tech crew for their events and to make some money in the process of doing it, and that 25% of all of the rental of their tech equipment is going back into the community, I thought that those were all very nice aspects of the plan that they put together in order to come up with something that's both a placemaking and a community bonding sort of experience. I had a significant concern in the project management in as much as there wasn't a financial statement, and there was an explanation as to why there wasn't a financial statement, but it was a really short, not very clear explanation. And again, without one, I always have concerns about how sound the fiscal management is going to be. I think that's all I'm going to say on that.
Okay.
I will clarify to say that per our eligibility, as long as it's a different nonprofit and it's a different event, even if they have a lot of overlap in events, we don't compare the applications, or it still is eligible
Got
to be
it.
funded for both.
Well, and we obviously all read them as separate applications, so that's the way
Absolutely,
that I
yeah.
was going with them.
Any other comments from other panelists on this application?
One of the things that they acknowledge here is that accessibility is an issue for this site, and so they're aware of that. It would have been nice to say, so is there anything we are doing to make that, to alleviate that at least? You know, it's a problem, okay? They acknowledge it's a problem. Are there any specific efforts they're making to, did you notice anything?
This is the one, I think, where they talked about the art walk as well, where they had to remove lots of physical barriers in order to
Yeah.
make that work. And the sense that I got was that they were going to be able to clear most barriers, but they didn't want to say that they were going to be able to clear every barrier for every
Right, I
participant.
thought it was an honest statement, rather than a flaw, but it's interesting, you know, what,
I agree.
Other comments from other panelists on this application? All right, hearing none, if you would finalize your scores and comments for this application?
Can I just say one more time for the record
Absolutely.
that the fact that I mentioned the two grants being in the same neighborhood doesn't mean that they weren't dealt with as both having unique, specific, individual qualities.
I appreciate the clarification, Michael. Thank you. All right.
Let's do one more.
Yes, our final application for this session is Timepiece Theater Company, Da Vinci Science Theater. And Matthew, you are first reader on this application.
The Da Vinci Science Theater seeks to put on these theatrical productions that are on various science-related topics. It certainly is unique that they are mixing those two together, and it seems worthwhile. I did take some points off of the way I scored this because I'm not clear on, they refer to various venues, but I'm not clear what they are. I'm not clear who the audience is that they're hoping to engage for these productions. They refer to hoping to engage people that are looking for a different kind of theatrical experience. However, I would think that it would be people that are interested in the topics that they're covering in the four productions that they're proposing, and all of that seemed very unclear to me.
Mm-hmm. Ray, you are second reader on this.
okay. I thought the support materials were a bit static. These are actors presenting these stories. I'd like to have seen something about that happening, in motion, in fact. They've got still photographs, which doesn't seem to be the best way to make the case that they're trying to make. Also, there's related to what you were saying, a kind of a diversity issue here. They're open to all. But are there any efforts to draw people in who would not automatically come because of the lure? Whatever, I'm not sure what you can do in a case like that, but that was there. I think my major, and this is the financial statement. There's a letter from the CPA, who their fiscal agent, this is a quote, management has elected to omit substantially all the disclosures ordinarily included. That seems to me very harsh. I'm not sure why they included it, as a matter of fact. But doesn't that, is there a way to explain that away to make it less damning than it sounds to me?
I don't have any
Yeah.
answer for you right now.
Okay.
I think my comment to that would be is, as a panelist, if that sends up a flag to you, then you take that into account. So.
As a theater person, there was one other flag that, from a practical standpoint, their timeline says that they're going to create all of these new shows, as they said, research, write, rehearse, design, and promote within 30 days from one show opening to the next show opening. And it's possible, I guess, but I wonder first, I wonder if it's possible, and second, I wonder what it does to the quality of the productions. You could rehearse a show in that amount of time, or you could write a script in that amount of time, or you could do something in that amount of time, but to do all those things in that amount of time, that would be challenging.
Other comments from panelists on this application?
I think their inclusion efforts were lacking. If they, doing grants, I think they really need to add more to that piece. It was just a really small paragraph, and it didn't really specify again on the locations, ADA accessible. I just need more of that to be able to really score. So it would have been nice to see a little bit more.
I loved the concept, and I loved the talk back with the scientist afterwards. It sort of took me back into a Chautauqua sort of approach to educational outreach.
I agree. I think this is a super idea.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's very flushed out. There were a lot of missing information.
I question the amount of public interest in the 4 topics that they're going to do these productions about. And if they're just trying to engage theater goers, I just don't know there will be a lot of public interest. I think that there would be specific audiences perhaps for each of the 4 topics that they're talking about. I don't know how many people they would engage with this.
I had the same reaction to a couple of the topics, but that just might, not in your case, but in my case, that might simply be ignorance about some of the importance of some of what they were trying to communicate. The one thing I did like was that they, instead of making it seem like they were just trying to attract theater goers, that they were trying to attract the same sorts of people that would belong to book clubs. And when I looked at it through that lens, I had a slightly different reaction to what it was that they were trying to do.
I also think they missed on some audiences. I think they
Yeah.
could have shown some examples of breaking barriers to audiences that wouldn't otherwise get to see this, and targeted youth, high school students.
Well, and with works like Henrietta Lacks in recent contemporary works that have engaged incredible dialogues about all sorts of issues of inclusion and what's appropriate in terms of scientific research, what's not appropriate in terms of scientific research. There were ways to choose topics that might actually be more inclusive than some of the ones that they chose.
And to put that in terms of engagement, how are these topics chosen?
The 2 people that are doing this,
Yeah,
these are
in
the
other
4
words,
topics
it's
that
a
we want.
top-down sort of thing, rather than...
Yeah.
Any other comments? Good discussion. All right, hearing none, I would ask you to finalize your scores and comments for this final application. And this concludes our afternoon panel meeting. We thank our audience for attending. Panelists, if you want to take a couple of minutes break here, I don't know, 10 minutes? Yeah, 10-minute break, stretch your legs.